Business Awareness Assessment Walkthrough AAT Level 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the draft assessment that we got from AAT for the Business Awareness unit. I'll go through the 7 tasks and I'll just sort of talk you through as a bit of a conversation about the answers to each one, really, or at least I'll have a go at it and see how well we do. In terms of where we're going to go, just as a background, let's see what the examiner is sort of saying about this unit. 70 guided learning hours, so reasonably large unit in terms of the amount of hours and times that the student's supposed to take. 70 hours worth of learning for this one, and really about sort of business awareness, commercial decision making, risk versus reward, and very much a sort of tutors are to bring the subject alive with real work examples to aid students' understanding. So about the understanding of decision making within business and this business awareness. So we've got a mixture of multiple choice questions, and we're going to start pick the right answer, and written questions. And I think because we got this link of business awareness and a wide-ranging thing there, 70 hours feels a bit like you're going to use all of the 70 hours as well to be able to achieve this one. We're really going to have to hoover up all the marks on the written parts of it to be able to sort of get a good pass on this one. So what is typically the weakness for students is going to have to be a strength. So before we start going into that, there's a detailed video on how to write, in terms of how to write like an accountant and write for an exams as well. But then if we're going to summarise that one, we're going to state a position, explain what it is, or explain the theory and extend the points. So we're going to have that ABC mark, and then we're going to have a balance of upsides and downsides. And so that's going to allow us to sort of hoover up the marks and get going in the written questions. We're going to consider risk versus reward and profit versus social consciousness. So just to get into the sort of the zone a little bit before we start the question, that's what we're going to be sort of thinking and going about it. Right, so let's get into it. Task 1. Task 1's about organizations, so types of organizational structures and ethics for accountancy. Okay, fine. So private limited companies. So in terms of our corporate structure, we've got a trade-off between disclosure and control versus limitation of liabilities. Limitation of liabilities, and we've got the ability to sell shares. Okay, so private limited companies can't sell shares to the public, but they are limited, but they do have some control, and they're not to the same extent as public limited companies. Can be owned by individual people, so that's good. It didn't say the public, so it can be that one. Trusts, yes, they can. Associations and or other companies, so yes. So they can be, and the way that wasn't a sort of a false is it didn't say members of the public. Okay, a sole trader, right, so no limitation of liability here, operates as a separate legal entity from its owners. No, it doesn't. That's the whole point of the sole trader, is that they are unlimited liability, and they are the organization, so they are the sole trader is responsible for all the liabilities of the business. If it goes wrong and what have you, they lose their house, whatever. So identify one of the following structures that is suited to an organization which runs regional projects. So we've got some kind of regional projects, so we're moving away from functional here with a centralized head office function. So centralized functions like marketing, finance, HR, and that kind of thing. So we've moved away from matrix. So a matrix one would have the projects, and each of those projects would carry its own functions of HR and finance in here. So that is then divisional. So matrix, these regional projects would carry their own head office functions. Functional, there would be the centralized head office functions, but there would also be the sales and products department. There wouldn't be these regional projects. So that one's divisional. Identify the type of control that's characterized by the following statements. So let's just look at what we've got here. We've got centralized control versus decentralized control, sort of tall versus flat structures, really. And this idea of, do we want to give control to the front line because they're best placed to make the decisions? Do we want to centralize the control because higher up managers have more understanding of the wider position, more skilled, and therefore it's better off for them to make the decisions? Wide spans of control versus narrow spans of control. So spans of control are, well, step back. The point of managers, and the only reason why they exist in terms of operational managers, is to make the doers, the frontline doers, perform better. Either they motivate them, or they teach them, or they coerce them to do their job well, really. To the extent that a manager's doing that, they're worthwhile. to the extent that they're not doing that, they're a cost that isn't worthwhile. And also as well, middle managers, to the extent that they're not doing that as well, is a lengthening out the communication chain. So that's when we're considering spans of control. How many employees can a manager effectively manage and ensure that they perform well? The wider it can be, obviously, the cheaper it is. Also as well, you could argue that it's better off to have better, more expensive managers. But the narrower it can be, the more control those managers can exert, but the more expensive it is. So a manager has a high number of employees under their direct control, wide span of control. So they have a lot of them. So they have a lot of employees, wide span of control. Decision-making and control is delegated to managers at lower levels of the organisation. Flat structure. Decentralized control. The organisation has less flexibility but higher control over decision-making. So less flexibility, tall structure, and more control from the centre. There's not people going off. So this disadvantage of decentralised control is people go off and do their own thing. They concentrate on bits that they want to do and whatever, not the actual things that we need to do. And they also don't necessarily have the overall picture of what we need to do in terms of the decisions in line with our sort of financial decisions or HR or marketing strategies or whatever. Advantages of centralized control, that we have more skillful managers making decisions, but they're further away from the front line, longer, more inflexible decisions. Okay, so HTR Limited is a private school for children. Okay, it's a limited company. Florence Granger is the sole owner and principal, so she's the sole owner of a limited company. Okay. Team of teachers that work at the school are full-time. There are 3 part-time administrative staff, 2 part-time cleaners and gardeners. The school is regulated by Ofsted, so it's a stakeholder outside that's the regulator, not going to actually make the decisions because it doesn't want to undermine its own independence, which undertakes regular inspections, sets guidelines for activities that should be doing there. So, wants the sector to do well, but similarly is separate to the sector in terms of its regulating agency. The school has funds to invest, and there's 2 options available. Alright, so we're going to make some decisions over what we're going to invest in. Expand the sports hall, add new equipment, and upgrade the computer facility. So we've got 2 competing options available. Right. Identify one of the following stakeholders. So we've series of stakeholders that we've had here. So we've got Florence, as we're going to go through here. We've got the teachers, we've got the admin, and we've got the cleaners, we've got Ofsted, we've got parents as well, probably as well, we've got children, probably the same old thing there though. We might have the wider community as well. So those are our list of stakeholders. Let's see what we're going to do. Right, which of the product has the power to make the decision? Okay, so who has the power in all this lot? Well, Florence is the owner. She's going to have the power. Alright, let's have a see. About which option to invest in, and they're going to be interested because this is teaching stuff here, and the other people are interested to a certain extent, but not as much as those ones. So parents of the children attending the school, but they don't have the power to make the decision. They don't own it. Florence does. Yes, so Florence has the power to make the decision. Teaching staff. No, they have an interest. In fact, they have a big interest in this one, but they don't have a decision. And Ofsted definitely wouldn't make the decision because it would undermine its independence. Imagine if it came along and said, build that thing there though, and then the teaching was still rubbish. It would actually sort of an advocacy risk for Ofsted, in the same way as for accountants. It doesn't want to advocate a position to then undermine its future objectivity. Identify which of the following. That would have probably been a good question. That one. Identify which one of the following stakeholders have the greatest interest in the decision about which of the options to invest in. So who's got the most interest in the decision? And the decision's about teaching facilities, isn't it? Really in there. So the teachers are probably going to have it. And so the teaching staff, well, they're high up there. I mean, Florence is going to be first, but the teaching staff can be second. Admin, Ofsted definitely wouldn't. It might have an interest in terms of it might sort of say the sports hall was rubbish in an inspection and would want to see it being improved, but it wouldn't have an interest in terms of it's not going to have any kind of the risk and reward associated with that. And the cleaning guys, so it's going to be teaching staff. That one's going to be teaching staff because they're the closest to that kind of decision. It's just common sense, that one. Identify which of the following systems by which companies are directed and controlled. Alright, so directed and controlled, which is going to be governance. Corporate compliance is compliance with rules. Corporate governance is going to be the answer. corporate administration, the way in which we administer our company returns and corporate regulations, the regulations that we're subject to. So corporate governance is the answer for that one. Complete the following statement about a company's board of directors by selecting one option. So board of directors, the board of directors is required to contribute capital to the company as individuals, and no, those are the shareholders. Set the company's strategic objectives. That's the point of the board of directors. They're going to set the strategic objectives, and they're not going to, be doing the day-to-day management. That's what we've got day-to-day managers for. And recruit all members of staff. No, day-to-day management. So that'll be our HR department together with our operational managers doing that kind of thing. They're going to set the company's strategic objectives. Okay, so we're doing all right so far. Sheldon is an accountant in practice. She's been told by her client, Freshno Limited. Right, okay, so she's in practice, and in practice we would have partners, managers, seniors, juniors, juniors, and we have clients that we service. Okay, so you've got a client in here, so she wants to keep them happy, so there's self-interest. See where we're going here. She must attend a meeting. So Freshno Limited, she must attend a meeting. Oh, okay. We're trying to raise additional funds by selling shares to investors. Freshno Limited wants Sheldon to speak at the meeting about what a good investment. All right, okay. Right, what a good investment. Advocacy risk here. So, if Sheldon was to advocate the position that these shares are really great, invest in this company, and she's also auditing the company as well, and the company turns out to not be that good at all, really, Sheldon's going to have a problem here, because what she's going to do then, or he's going to do, is going to undermine their credibility by turning around to these investors who he or she is told is great, this company's great, and actually then tell them that it's actually a lot of rubbish. So it's quite difficult, because the advocacy risk would then be a threat to the objectivity. You're seeing this threat to your credibility, would you remain objective later on? So there we go, there's advocacy. We've been asked to advocate a position. You must always be careful that you don't advocate a position. And so if we go back actually to our approach, you see what I'm sort of saying upside downside here. And the reason for that is to get balance into any answer. Here's the upsides, here's the downsides. On balance, my recommendation is this. But if you're going rah, go whatever, this side, and there's no consideration of the risk or the downsides, you've advocated that position too aggressively in there, it turns out there's not the situation that it was, and then you've got a threat to your objectivity, because you think, oh my goodness, if I go and say that this isn't much cop, then my credibility's gone and not going to be shot. So it will be a threat to, a threat to objectivity. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the other ones in here. It's had a self-review here, isn't there, in terms of, we said that this was great. Sheldon perhaps is the manager on the audit, and therefore might sort of self-review the audit and say it's great. An intimidation one, Freshno's sort of being a little bit aggressive really here in terms of that, but he's not actually putting a gun to their head and sort of saying, listen, do this or else. I mean, it's just basically do this or I'll go and find a different accountant. What you'd have to say is I'm sorry, but that presents a conflict of interest for ourselves really here. We can't do that, because how could we then audit you later down the line? And they just have to accept that. If they didn't accept that, well, you'd be sort of losing your practice so it's not really a good deal, and probably you don't want that person as a client anyway. Good luck, go find somebody else. Okay. Accountants in the UK are required to keep their knowledge up to date and undertake. What I would say as well is just here, just because Freshno's paying the bill and we want to get paid by them and they're a client, the customer's not always right. And I think quite often as well, especially sort of the lower levels in sort of decision making, and you'll see this in middle managers as well, really. This idea that the customer's always right, we've got to keep them happy all the time. Actually, no. If the customer's unreasonable and talking nonsense, well, but we'll lose the customer. Great, there'll be a customer for somebody else being unreasonable and talking nonsense. So that's not a client that you'd be after if they said, oh well, and it took umbrage and a bit of a huff and went off to somebody else. Great, go off to somebody else. Right, accountants in the UK are required to keep their knowledge up to date, so continuing professional development. to be competent, to undertake our provision with competency and due care. Which of the following protects to be competency and due care? Integrity, no. Well, it does maintain it in terms of a little bit. That we can maintain our integrity because we're good at our job. Objectivity, well, we know what we're supposed to be doing, which makes us objective. But it is professional competence and due care is the main one. Professional behaviour. So, which one protects all of them, to be honest with you, to a certain extent? It says this one mainly. Right. Okay. Identify which two of the following are the advantages of the principles-based approach to ethics. So, a rules-based approach is sort of setting out the rules and is yes, no. Yes, no, and compliance. And what it means is that you can sort of say, well, I didn't break the rules, and therefore, you'd have to have these rules that covered absolutely everything. And is that likely when you're sort of based with all of these various different factors and whatever? Not really likely in accountancy, really. So we don't really have a rules-based approach to ethics, because otherwise we'd be there going, well, no, we were perfectly fine, thank you. We didn't break the rules. Then people will be arguing about the spirit of the rules, what have you. But that's why a rules-based approach doesn't work. In money laundering, though, in terms of the identification of individuals, I always find it a bit funny that to identify somebody from a money laundering point of view, we need their bank account, a utility bill and their passport. Well, big time drug dealers are quite good at getting false passports, and they probably can get a utility bill as well. So it's a bit strange from that point of view. That we'd probably be better off with an ethics-based approach than the old version pre-2002. But anyway, ethics-based approach over a rules-based approach. So it's going to be easy enforcement. Not really easy enforcement, because there's more sort of grey areas in there. So it's not easy enforcement. It's not a straight yes no answer. You clearly broke the rules. Money laundering identification, did you get their passport? Did you get a utility bill off them? There's a sort of straight yes no there. But then criminal requirements, so it has to be more rules based. Applicable to all situations, yes, that's the whole point of an ethics based approach. Really, in there, it is applicable to all situations. As a professional, you are to consider your ethical position in there, and it'll be about whatever situation it's going to be in. Reduced misunderstandings or misinterpretations, no, that's a rules based approach. Really, that it's a sort of back to this yes no, did you break it, did you not break it. So less chance of people finding loopholes, though, is the advantage of the ethics sort of side, because it covers all things, whereas on the rules-based approach, that's very much we're going to find the loopholes and sort of jump through them if you wanted to make a bit more money or whatever, and that was what was driving you. So applicable to other situations and less chance of finding loopholes. The other two are about the advantages of a rule-based approach. For each of the statements below, identify the safeguard needed to protect professional ethics. So poor inventory and controls resulting in staff stealing, so a threat tester of our integrity. Really, in here we'll have disciplinary procedures to keep everybody in line. In there, so that will be that one. We've got continuous professional development. That's going to be some kind of competency thing, and well-publicised. Okay, well-publicised complaint system. Okay, with regulatory changes often occurring in the counterwise, we got some kind of professional competence kind of thing. So to protect our threat, which is to competency and due care, we're going to have CPD to keep us up to date. And to engage with and retain clients, staff in accountancy practice may take on and work clients for which they do not have knowledge or experience to complete. So we might take on these clients, and to sort of protect a bit against a risk from that, what we're going to do is this client to sort of have a good complaint system that they can know to complain up front. If in doubt, complain to the senior partner for this one, and if not, complain to the regulatory authority here. If we were a bit rubbish and we take on clients which we actually had no idea how to teach, how to sort of do the work for them, and we didn't make the effort either to do the CPD to do that. Could be a little bit of CPD as well, I suppose, in terms of trying to learn about the client as well. But there's probably going to be a complaint system on for that one. Okay. In which of the two following situations can an accountant practice and disclose confidential information about a client without their client's express permission? So here we're going to give some kind of situation, some information about the client. The client obviously doesn't want us to do that. It could be something about they've broken the law or whatever. So it's going to be very much about what we're required for the law. So we've got disclosures required by the law. Here we're in a court or something like that, or the police have written to us and said, right, we want to know what the transaction was here, and so we're required to provide it. Disclosure is required to comply with the practice's internal policy. Very interesting. So what? You can write whatever you want to your internal policies. That's not going to give you the right to break the client's confidentiality. Disclosures requested verbally by the relevant tax authority. Now I'll try that in writing. So the tax authority could require it in there if they'd written to us and required it. They're almost sort of dragging us into a legal law required by law. Professional duty to write to disclose. That would be something like that there, where we're into like money laundering or what have you, and we have concerns that this person might be a sort of a drug dealer or whatever, and we're going to report this to the National Crime Agency via the Money Laundering Reporting Officer. What I will say as well in terms of reporting that professional right to duty to disclose, often will be, let's say in these things, used to having the ethics one, a trick question whereby it'd be a relatively junior staff member who would sort of find something, and would they go along to the National Crime Agency themselves, like Colombo? They wouldn't. They would report it to the Money Laundering Reporting Officer, who would then do that, and they wouldn't go on either, and they wouldn't go confront the client either, because that would be tipping off. Okay, anymore? That's it. Okay, so that's an introduction and task 1 done. Question 2. Okay, so this task is about analysing the external environment, so it's going to be some form of risk question. Let's sort of see what it is. Holidaymaker is a business operating in the hotel and tourism industry. Okay, so we've got tourism going on. Fleet of planes, so they've got planes, also they operate fleet of planes, and they're flying, and they also own hotels. Okay, right, so they got also own hotels, and they got planes, and so we're going to have fuel going on there, and we're going to have prices in dollars when we buy fuel, and then hotels throughout UK and Europe. Okay, so we've got a lot of exchange rates going on here. Okay, so we're buying, we're sort of selling a product, these hotels and flights in pounds, and we're paying for fuel in dollars and any sort of costs aboard in euros, as well as the holiday packaging includes all right. So we have packages. Okay, we've got packages. Packages, flights and accommodation. Holidaymaker also serves packages of day trips. Okay, we've got day trips that we sell as well. Entry to tourist attractions and advanced meal tickets. Okay, that kind of thing there. The packages are organised and provided by a third party. Alright, so we've got third party, we don't control. So we've got control risk going on there as well. We don't control that. And they might do things that are dodgy or whatever, or provide a poor service. And that, although customers book and pay for the packages with Holidaymaker. Alright, so again we're coming back to some kind of exchange rate risk as well. Unlike its competitors, Holidaymaker has not upgraded its website and booking system for a number of years. All bookings must be made over the telephone. Alright, okay, so no online. No online. So we're going to be telephone. We're going to be speed and cost. Okay, speed and cost there. So they must, all bookings must be made by telephone, by the customers, or by email. God. And currently no facility on the website for customers to book their holidays or packages. Right. For each of the 3 specified personal characters, okay, so we've got political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. Now, identifying one threat facing Holidaymaker, the company. Right. Okay. So what we've got economic. So economic is things like exchange rates and the economy. So we've got things like unemployment, and the amount of disposable income people have. Okay, so those are the 2 sort of things that we're going to have. Really, we're going to have the sort of exchange rate is going to be the key one. I think is going to be sitting here. We are paying for fuel fuel and our sort of costs. A lot of our costs in euros. Now, the action to reduce that threat is that we can we could have a foreign bank account, and we could move the money over there so it's already in euros, and we sort of exchange it straight away at the time that we take the money. Alternatively, because we've got future sort of what tends to happen in the holiday industry is you pay a booking, and then later on you pay some more, and then later on you pay some more, and so you don't actually have this money to switch into the bank account. You could hedge against that. You could buy options in the future to sort of sell these pounds into euros at fixed prices in future. The exchange rate might move, but you've already locked into the price that you had in that option. Okay, that'll be that one. And then in terms of the economy, in terms of, well, we've got unemployment and disposable income. So how much money people have got? They might have a lot, they might have a little in there. So we could have a diverse range of different holiday packages from between our low amounts from budget holidays all the way up to sort of 4 or 5 star holidays. Right, social. Okay, so social, basically fashion and opinion. So things could change on the social front. That people don't want. So we've got in terms of we've got a full holiday package here that we're sort of selling in here. So packages, and let's just go through and sort of we've ticked those ones off. We've gone through and we've ticked off our exchange rates. Okay. Social. We've got two risks here. We have package holidays. So there's package holidays here, and people might say, well, actually, I want to buy my flight and my accommodation separately. So that would be one possibility of a risk. And the other one in terms of our social is that, let's say, one of our day trips is to go and pet baby tigers. Let's say, Tiger King's quite popular. On telly, anyway, not in real life. So maybe that's sort of our day trips, and but we've got social media, and now we get really bad press because we've got this on our website, we're going and petting baby tigers and what have you, and so we might sort of go and review our day trips and see whether they are ethical and what have you, or the sort of the experience that we're getting, that we got a sort of social media kind of aspect coming in there. So we've got fashion and opinion. There could be changes now in holiday trends in terms of what we're going to do. We're probably going to go for that one really, because we've got environmental as well, which could have the sort of the thing about whether we're ethical or not anymore. So I'd probably go packages. The people might move for different types of things. Alternative diversification of the offer. We could have camping destinations, we could have cruises, we could have backpacking, that kind of thing really. Right, and then the last one is technological. Okay, so the big threat is, well, we don't have the ability to book online. That means that people will go to our competitors because they can need speed of delivery, and also there's a cost disadvantage to that, the way in which we're going about taking it over the phones and what have you, and the action to reduce the threat, produce an online system. Okay, identify one of the remaining pestle categories. So we've got political, haven't we? We've done economic and social, and we've done economic, social, and technical. So political, and we've got legal, and we've got environmental. There's the 3 that are left. Really. And all of those things are, in terms of pestle, it's just a possibility to jog what you can jog your memory in terms of potential risks. Really, that's all it is. Okay, match each of these technologies. Let's see, we've got a little question. Match each of these technologies to one significant advantage it brings to accounting systems. Okay, so we've got automation. Okay, well, automation speeds up data entry and it frees up time for more valuable work. So we've got one of those two. So interesting. Identify one. Okay, this isn't great. Machine learning. Well, machine learning is going to speed up data entry, isn't it? And it's going to free up time for work. That's not great either. And you could also have, say, as machine learning, it could be that it's going to sort of find potential frauds as well at the same time. Blockchain is a block of information, and then it has an encryption, and then it attaches to another block, and it can't be changed. So once it's decided, it can't be changed. Doesn't do that. Could be transparency of transactions, because everybody in the chain can see the transactions. Mainly security and confidentiality, to be honest, because it's encrypted. But it's one of those two. And electronic document filing. Well, that is that you have actually a filing attached to the document. So let's say we have a document, and then we're going to go into our sort of system, and we're going to see an expense for £1,500. Attached to it is an electronic document, and we can sort of see it there. So it could be security and confidentiality, because we don't have to have everything hanging around, and it could be transparency of transactions. So a pretty horrific question, this, actually, because you could argue, I think the people who sort of go for each one of these ones would argue a whole series of these ones in there. Pretty terrible question, actually. To be fair, you're going to be just guessing in this situation here. So automation, going to go for probably freeing up time for more work. That's the point why we automate things, really, because we have a cost to automate as well in there. Machine learning, is going to be speeding up data entry, because that one's, the machine's going to do the actual entry for us, and it's going to sort of the way in which it's going to go about it. Again, that speeding up the data entry is going to free up time for more valuable work, but definitely there. It would have been slightly this one over here as well, in terms of saying, are you definitely sure about that particular transaction? But okay. Blockchain. Blockchain, well, it could be, these last two could be either of those two. I mean, they're literally interchangeable. This is a terrible question. It's got encryption attached to it, so I'm going to put security and confidentiality, and they're just simply because it's got in there. But similarly, it could be transparency of transaction, and electronic data. I'd be going like that. Honestly, could be anything in there. Awful, rancid question, actually, that one, really. Identify which each of the following statements. Let's just get rid of those lines here. Identify whether each of the following statements about financial statements of limited companies are true or false. So, financial statements of limited companies. So we've got limited liability here, disclosure versus liability. And the preparation of financial statements is the responsibility of the shareholders. Okay, I'm not sure about that one, really. No, it's not really. It's the responsibility of the managers. And it's the chair and the CEO who sign off on the actual production of these statements, and the shareholders quite often are the owners as well. But that's not true. And but the shareholders must approve them. So financial statements must be approved by shareholders. Yeah. So the chair and the CEO typically sign the statements, and the shareholders approve them at their annual general meeting. Okie dokie. Let's keep going. What else have we got here? So, complete each of the following definitions about unlimited liability partnerships. So we haven't gone for limited liability partnerships. We've got unlimited ones here. So we're all tied together as a happy bunch of partners, all reliant totally on the other person's decision making, which is the reason why limited liability partnerships come in, because one partner can take down the entire firm, as they have done in the past in the likes of BDO in the 90s and Enron later on. So a goodwill in the partnership can be defined as, so we've got goodwill in the partnership here. So goodwill is we got value of a whatever it is in there, whatever the value of the organization is, or whatever, less its liabilities, really. So it's sort of goodwill is the amount that we're valuing it less the assets plus the liabilities, in terms of what is the value of the business. And so when we've got partnership agreement, no, that's got nothing to do with goodwill. These might be set out in it. Partnership contract, same old. The amount by which the business's total value, so total value of the organisation, and now we're going to see some kind of assets, exceeds the value of the separately identified. So value minus assets is equal to, minus assets is equal to goodwill. So it's the value of the assets. Well, also the value of the assets minus the liabilities, to be fair. We might see whether we've got a better version of that one. The amount paid for the brand. Well, no, because although quite often goodwill is associated with brands, it's an intangible asset. Let's say I go along and I buy Bacardi, a brand, not owned by Diageo. I gone along and I bought that particular brand in there. Well, I probably bought some assets in terms of the actual sort of bottling factory and whatever that went alongside it as well. I didn't just buy this particular brand. So there would be the brand. The brand is sitting there within it, but actually, there might be something else attached to it. So it is more that question that answers there. So we're going to go for that one. Goodwill can be defined as the value by which, and the ownership proportions, salaries, and distributions of profits are defined by the partnership. Well, it's an agreement for partnerships, really, because it's unlimited liability partnerships. So we haven't got any kind of liability contract going on here. So we're going to go partnership agreement in here over partnership contract. Right, okay, so it's the same thing. So these two right down here are about goodwill, of which that was the answer, technically, correct. And these two ones here about partnerships, of which that one's the correct one, because they're partnerships. We just entered into we just carry on working together. In UK, it's important in terms of partnerships that you can get drawn into being a partnership. If you and another person just start knocking out a bit of work together. So I think the best one would be, was it Frank Warren and Don King started doing boxing sort of nights together in the UK, and Frank Warren's got a load of assets and whatever that he was sort of had in there. Don King comes along and just sort of starts doing a bit of work with him. Don King claims to be his partner. He's now got half the assets. So you always have to be careful in terms of partnership agreement. Unless there's actually a partnership agreement setting out who owns the assets, what's going to be the salary and the distribution of profits. So unless there's an actual partnership agreement in there, then it's 50-50. So you have this partnership agreement to make sure that it's not just 50-50. Okay, so that is question 1. Okay, that's question 2. Question 3. Okay, so just ask about business structures, technology, and data security. Okay, identify which two of the following are key features of cloud accounting. So cloud accounting is that we have our accounting system in the internet, in the cloud. So it's basically in a big data warehouse somewhere else, sold by a sort of software firm, really, that's doing a whole series of other sort of clients as well. And it's what's known as a hosted system. So it's hosted in the cloud, in that, rather than the alternative is on a local server. So hosted on the cloud rather than local server. The advantages are that we can we don't have to have that local server. You could argue that that's got better security. You could argue that's got weaker security. One of the other and there. But we can all be working around the world, at home or in different offices or whatever, on the same system. That's its main advantage, really. And it's also got a much more greater standardization to be able to sort of work with other apps and what have you. So 2 features of cloud accounting: secure local backup. Well, that's the exact opposite, isn't it? I sort of said the cloud is in the cloud. Availability of apps and plugins. Well, that was one of them. It was standardized and it was sort of available to be able to sort of be much more sort of linked to other software systems, because you've got that expert in that particular thing hosting it and organizing it in the cloud. Restricted mobile access to information. Well, that's the opposite of the cloud, isn't it? Enables access to large networks. Well, it does enable access to large we've got much more sort of ability to either build a large network across the world or what have you, or alternatively access to large sort of data warehouses, whatever they're sort of meaning by that statement. Okay, so that's the cloud versus local. Identify which of the following are the benefits of cloud accounting. Reduce data collection. It doesn't make a difference, really. I don't know what there's no relevance here. Data is updated in real time. That's definitely an advantage of the cloud. That we're all working on the same data, updated in real time across the internet. Increased data security. Could be increased because this cloud operator, this host, has got much better security than our ability. Could be weaker because we've got this nice thing sitting in our own server and you can't really get at it. So it's up and down now. One-off investment cost. Well, that's not a benefit. Actually, to be fair, it's the other way around, really. That you don't have to go and buy the server that you're going to host your account system on. It's going to be updated in real time, but it could have been that one really as well, to be honest, really. bit of an interesting one. This really is sort of showing the weakness of this sort of multiple choice approach in business awareness, where you've got lots of different factors that go on. We just have to answer the question, see and move on. Really, I don't think you want to tear yourself up about whether it's necessarily right or wrong at times. Cloud accounting has an impact on the role of the accountant because transactions are now. We've got this one here, which enables the accountant to focus on analysis, work, and decision making. Well, that one about focus on analysis, work, and decision making is automated. So, although you sort of have this first preamble here about this sort of statement here, whenever you see focus on analysis, work, and decision making, you mean you see an automation there, really. Can't really sort of say that's an advantage of the cloud versus anything else, really. You could hold a whole series of different kind of things here. You could say machine learning or what have you. So, okay, well, we know it's automated because it's just got the second part of the sentence, not necessarily because we're relating to the cloud. Challenges can be faced when sharing information with stakeholders. So it's stakeholders, okay, due to increased security settings. Well, if they had access to it, then I don't know. That's not really an answer. Using different software is possible. Sharing out-of-date data. Well, the point of the cloud is that it's up to date. So it can't be that, and it can't be that. So it must be B. But again, I think what we're sort of seeing in this answer really is we're sort of going by a process of elimination rather than it being a straight, well, using different software. Challenges can be faced when sharing information with stakeholders due to sharing different software. I think the cloud, though, has a view that it's got a lot of software that's integrated as well, so it's not really the greatest of answers there. I mean, it has to be that one, I think, but it's not brilliant. Identify which two of the following are business risks posed by cyber attacks. Okay, loss of customer data, failure of IT systems, intermediate need for fundamental change of the business model, no. Inability to raise finance. Right, so a cyber attack is trying to do two things. It's either trying to steal company data that I'm then going to go and use for some practice or other. So I steal everybody's bank account and I start taking bank account details. Or alternatively, I'm going to crash your system and I'm going to hold you to ransom until you pay me some money, usually in bitcoins or whatever, to be able to release whatever ransom, whatever hit I did on your website. So those are the two things that we do in terms of cyber attacks. We steal information, and that would be then covered under Gdpr, and we try and sort of hold people's systems to ransom. Need to change the business model. Well, that's just like a nonsense answer. And an inability to raise new finances again, so it's got no relevance at all. Right, okay, identify one action that should be performed in relation to personal data after the business has used it. So this is a GDPR question. So it's GDPR. So we've got a GDPR question in here, and what we've got then is we should only really hold data. Let me make this a bit bigger. Okay. So we're going to hold data if reasonable, and we're going to have a reason for data, and we're going to give people access to it, and it's going to be accurate. Okay, so that's a general sort of, in terms of GDPR, that's generally where we're going to be really in there. We're going to hold that. So we finished using it, so it's no longer relevant for us to hold it. We've no longer got a legitimate interest in holding this data. So pass it on to somebody else. No, that's sort of like, well, let's go and sell all your details on a mailing list. No, we're definitely not going to go for that. Give it back to the data subject. Well, how are we going to give it back to the data subject? It's held electronically. That doesn't make sense at all. Oh, sorry, hang on. We're not going to do that one. We're not going to give it back to the data subject, or securely delete and destroy it. Yes, hold it for as long as you can, then destroy it securely. And not just sort of like chuck it in the bin outside. Identify two of the following which are valid principles of data protection. Okay. Personal data shall be held for the purposes for a minimum of 12 weeks and not more than 6 years for any reason. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. You could have medical records that need to be held for much longer than that. You could have mental health records that need to be held for much longer than that. You could have, so it's a rubbish answer. Okay, so it's not number one. Then the information contained in personal data shall be obtained and personal data processed fairly and lawfully. Well, that definitely is one there. You can only obtain your data fairly, and you can only process it lawfully. So you can't do a thing like you go onto Facebook and you start to analyze out lots of people's personal data and then process it to work out which way they're going to vote or what have you, that kind of thing. That wouldn't be fair and lawful. So we're not going to be able to do that. So it's obtained. So this is obtained. So we get hold of the data, and then processed. Process is we just do something with it. Obtained, sort of getting it and holding it, and processing it is doing something with it, especially the automation of doing something with it. Personal data should be adequate and relevant, but not excessive in relation to the purpose or the purposes. So you've got to have a legitimate interest for holding this data. It's not just that you've got a personal desire to snoop on people. You've got to actually have a legitimate reason why you're going to do it. There's a whole series of ones that come from your contract in there, or your particular but if you're getting to legitimate interest, which is one of the ones that are sort of set out, that I am organization X and it's in my interest to be able to sort of hold this, you've got to that can't override the person's own interest as well. So it's very much government organizations that do that kind of thing, really. Personal data should be updated on a minimum on an annual basis. That's just nonsense. So it's those middle two there. Okie dokie. Right, complete the following statement about a data breach by selecting one option. So we're still in GDPR 1 here. If a business owner breaches data protection, they will be, okay, they'll be fined. So it's the business owner. So fines, which are very hefty on in GDPR, and they won't be imprisoned. That's getting a little bit harsh, and unless they were then doing some kind of fraud or something, but that's a different crime, and subject to disciplinary procedure by the only organisation, so it's fine. So that will be that. Let's get down to G here. So identify which quality of service is described in each of the following statements. So we got right. So things that perish are things that sort of die off. Really, you only have a certain lifespan. Variable things that are variable, different, and there are things that are inseparable. They're by definition connected. And then intangible is it's not. Unless it's the alternative. Something that's tangible, something that's physical. And there, intangible is not. It's something that's ethereal. Right. Okay. The service cannot be stored and used later. So cannot be stored, cannot be used later. It is perishable. It dies off. It goes off. The service is usually provided at the same time that it is consumed. Okay, so it's going to be inseparable. I provide the service, you do it. Those are sort of inseparable. Actually, they're the greatest of answers. But the service does not provide a physical product. So remember, I'm saying tangible is physical, intangible is not physical. So okay. And the service is tailored to the needs of each customer. Well, that's variable, isn't it? And, it's not standardized. So the opposite of variable is standardized. So there we go. We've got variable. So we got standardized versus variable. Different versus bespoke. Right. Okay. Bales Limited is a new purchase a new machine that is considering how they should fund the purchase. Okay. So how they're going to fund the purchase. So there's going to be large cash flows to repay the fund, large regular cash flows to repay the funding. Well, that's capital introduced is money coming in. Working capital is short term, and sort of variable, and then this large regular outflows suggests that's a loan. Okay, suitable for short term funding requirements. So short term funding requirements would be for working capital. So like a bank overdraft or something like that there, though, to fund debtors or to fund a stock purchase. And what you tend to do within terms of funding, for funding versus assets, is you tend to link the length of the sort of the liability to the length of the asset. So we would take out loans for buildings or cars and what have you. We would take out working capital facilities for stock and debtors, that kind of thing, really. So that's how we tend to sort of do. You just line up the length of the funding source to the length of the asset that it's funding. Okay. Right. That's question 3. Question 4. So this task is about ethical and legal compliance. Helena works for a small accountancy practice. She's just started work on a client. Builds up. Helena has identified a serious tax error which was made in last year's return. The error was made by her manager. Okay, so there's a taxation error. So it's made by her manager. So in a firm we'd have a partner, a manager, and then seniors, juniors. We're in practice. Here it's made a large underpayment of tax. Alright, for underpayment on this. There's a gain here. Underpayment, so there's a gain. And it would be a criminal gain if we're just going to keep it. Helena's discussed this with Andrew. Told her to ignore it. Alright, okay, that's not good. There's nothing can be done about it now because it was last year. She's since discovered that Andrew has a large amount of work completed on his house by builds up. Okay, right. Explain one ethical issue. So one ethical issue, but what have we got in terms of ethical issues? Well, we've got we've got familiarity, haven't we? Because Andrew's got work on the house. We got conflicts of interest. And we got self-interest. Companies of interest and self-interest. So that's all Andrew's issues in there, and they then are threats to his objectivity. So you got another one. I mean, he could simply be friends with builds up, couldn't he? That they know another person. So we've actually also got advocacy as well here, couldn't we? That he might advocate. He might have advocated that he's done a good job, whatever, in there though, and as a consequence, they've given him a favour on the house, and he might be their friend or whatever, and he might be saying, don't tell anybody because he doesn't want everybody to think he's a bit of a done it wrong. So we've got an advocacy risk as well. He's advocated that this is right and it's actually wrong. Okay, so there's the thing there, and all of those ones are a threat to the objectivity, and they're also a threat to the integrity, isn't there, as well? Threats to professional integrity. Okie dokie. So that's where we are so far. Explain the consequences if Helena takes no action in relation to this matter. So we got the threats. So who we got involved in here then? We've got Helena, haven't we? So Helena could get disciplinary action, either disciplinary action from the firm herself, the partner, saying why won't do that, or from the professional body. Yeah. Who else have we got into here? We got the practice itself, haven't we? So there's the practice in there, and we've got builds up, and we got Andrew as well. So these are the selections. So Helena could get disciplinary action. The practice could get disciplinary action against the practice as well, really, and also the partner in terms of how they're running their practice. So they could get some disciplinary action against them. Builds up is going to get some taxation sort of fines and interest on the taxation as well, and interest on the fines. And Andrew could continue doing. Well, it says ignore any legal implications as well. So Andrew is not getting any kind of actions that should happen, but could continue, and it could become worse as well for him. So those are almost look at who the people are, and then start to think about the implications of those. So you could pick any of that really. Okay, is that a question? Right. Good morning. I'm looking for some advice, please. I'm concerned about one of my clients' car dealership. My knowledge is not up to date. Please could you respond from information to cover the following? So it's a car dealership. Explanation of money laundering. So we've got car dealership, and money laundering. Right. So in terms of money laundering, then we've got a few things going on then, really, haven't we? We've got concealing, which is always the definition. Let's just see where we're going. We'll see what we're doing there in a second. We've got the placement, layering, and we've got integration. And then we've got the offences as well that we can have. That's what we should be thinking before we go into this question. So an explanation of money laundering. Okay, an explanation of money laundering is the concealing of funds, typically illegal funds. So it's a process of concealing illegal funds. It's a criminal act, and it's designed to be able to allow criminals to enjoy the proceeds of their crime. So we would then place this illegal fund within the sort of finance system. We go through a series of layering to move it around and transfer it around so that we can confuse authorities trying to track the crime, and then we integrate it back into the finance system to allow the criminal to then enjoy the proceeds of crime. So it comes from the Proceeds of Crime Act, 2002. It could similarly be used for terrorism. So either it allows the criminal to enjoy the proceeds of crime or to fund terrorism. Okay, so two examples of specific money laundering offences. So the offences are, well, it could be committed by the car dealership here. Right, well, there's not the actual crime, so there's not a stealing of the car. So what does, well, this thing buys and sells cars, so it can't actually sort of steal cars, and that's so there's one which is basically the sort of the proving of providing of the money laundering. So you actually sort of the criminal act itself, that's not included within there. We could be sitting here and we can conceal funds. So we've got our ability to sort of conceal funds. That would be one. Where the process of concealing the money that can come in. So how can we do that? We could conceal some funds by selling cars for sort of drug money, let's say, in here. So for the illegal money, we could allow the person to buy cars without any due diligence checks. And so they bought it, so we've allowed them to conceal their funds. We can have the acquisition sort of side of it. So we've allowed them to sort of acquire sort of the wealth sort of side of it and enjoy the proceeds of their crime. You know, they come in, they put £100,000 of the drug money on the table, and they've driven off in a Ferrari, so they're enjoying the proceeds of their crime. Alternatively, we could be looking to arrange, couldn't we? And we could sort of they come in and they buy a car. Let's say they buy a car from somebody else for cash. They come in and they sell a car to us. We've already sort of agreed that kind of thing, really, and then we give them a check that they can then go and pay into a bank account. So we're sort of arranging that they can money launder them. So we're helping them conceal their money by, you know, selling them cars for cash that we know is illegal. And then we got a one where we're sort of basically sort of they're buying cars off them, that we give them checks. So we're arranging them to actually be able to do the money laundering. So we're arranging it ourselves, really, by giving them checks that they can pay into a bank account, or alternatively, we're allowing them to use the processes of their crimes in terms of acquisition. What else could we do? We could failure to notify. You know, that somebody comes into our dealership, sticks 2 duffel bags of £100,000 on the counter, and we don't notify the authorities. We could have failure to undertake due diligence. You know, that we might want to say, well, actually, we think that this should come to us via a check from a bank account. You know, so we could have those ones in there. It's going to be mainly the sort of the acquisition, arranging, and the concealing sort of side of it, really. But the other ones are equally valid. Reply to Helena addressing each of the 3 points she made. So what was that first bit there? Right, okay. We've just gone and done that there. So that's the two examples of a specific money laundering offence. So we've done that one. And then explain the term layering. So the term layering is that we place the money into the system, but then that's easily tracked in there. So the process of layering is we transfer it around between different financial transactions, between banks and, you know, different transactions as well, buying and selling things or whatever, to try and confuse the trail of this fund, so that we can then move it back into the system, and once it's integrated, then we can enjoy the proceeds of it. So that's what layering is. Okay, that's task 4. Question 5. Right, so this task is about the microeconomic environment sustainability. So we're into that area, which is of the syllabus, which can be supply and demand curves and markets. So Identify which two of the following events may cause a shift in the demand curve of a normal good. Right, so what you do first of all within these questions is you create the supply and demand curve. So let's do that. So we've got the price on this axis here, and then quantity on this axis. So that's our price quantity graph, quantity in here. Now it says it's a normal good, and so what's going to happen with a normal good is that we're going to have a downward sloping demand curve here, but if the economy increases, so income increases, it's going to shift to the right, and if income reduces, it's going to shift to the left. That's what a normal good is. You want, the more money you have, the more you want of it. So, which of the following events may cause a shift in the demand curve of a normal good? A change in the quantity supplied. Well, that's not causing a shift in the demand curve. That's up and down the demand curve. A change in consumer income. So that would be that's going to create a shift in that. Let's get ourselves a little tick mark here. So that one's right. Ooh. That one's right. A change in consumer tastes or preferences. So yes, that change in consumer tastes or preferences will cause a shift in the demand curve left or right. So that's another one. Okay. A change in raw materials cost. A change in raw materials cost causes a shift in the supply curve rather than the demand curve. So it's that one and that one. Right. A normal good. So we're back to the normal goods. In here has a substitute called S. Right. So in normal goods, so we've got substitutes and we've got complementary goods. A substitute good competes with our goods. So if the price of it reduces, then the demand of our good reduces as people shift to their product. So the price of S has fallen. So the price of the substitute has fallen. So we would imagine we're going to see a reduction in our demand. There will be a movement down in the demand curve. The supply curves move up and down. There will be a shift. The demand curve will shift to the right. If the demand curve shifted to the right, for the same price, there'd be more quantity demanded. So that's not what's going to happen here. The demand curve is going to shift to the left. So that one's going to be the demand curve shifts to the left. And let's show you why this demand curve shifts to the left. So the price of the substitute good has gone down. So what happens is that our product is less competitive against that substitute good really there. So for the same price, there's a lower quantity demanded. This price supply curve, the demand curve shifts to the left. Movement up in the demand curve. That's for our supply curves. Right, okay. A chain of small discount supermarkets is entering into another area of the market by opening up big hypermarkets. Okay, alright. Identify two of the following that might be the impact of the small discount supermarkets entry. So a chain of small discount supermarkets entering into another area of the market by opening up big hypermarkets. Okay, so it's going to come into the market, and it's a substitute to other suppliers within the market. So it's going to be a substitute. Then what's going to happen? Right, let's roll this down here. See if it'll move. Yep. Okay. So again, we're into substitute goods in a normal good demand, right? Okay. So higher prices as a result of increased competition in the hypermarket industry due to increased number of prices. Well, it's not going to be higher prices. Now there's going to be lower prices. So let's just get ourselves one of these ones here. So it's not going to be that one. Okay. So it won't be that one. Heavy discounting as a competitive response from the large hypermarket chains to protect their market share. That could happen. Yeah, we could have reductions in prices. Yeah, and also as well they could they could try and sort of force our new entrant out of the market to try and protect market share. If you want to see the market segmentation, have a look at the video that's on the channel. Potentially unethical behaviour as other hypermarkets respond by putting more pressure on suppliers. We've got to find two of those. It's a theoretical position. In reality, it wouldn't happen, but we can hold on to that one certainly. Reduced market share for the large hypermarket chains will lead to increased economies of scale. Well, reduced market share, so reduced amounts will lead to reduced economies of scale. So it can't be that one. It can't be that one. That one's definitely true. This one's a theoretical, but it's whether it happened in reality or not is questionable, because the suppliers would actually simply just shift to the new entrant. And so it's those two. Complete the following statement about the meaning of sustainability by selecting one of the options. A sustainable business meets the present needs of the present time without. Right, so it's going to be an environment in the future, so sustainability. Any negative impact on the environment, so you see the word any. Yeah, so it could be a reduced negative impact in there, but it can't be any, because we are going to have some environmental impact. Impact on the resources of future generations. Yeah, that's sustainable by definition. That's what it would be in there. Changing the long-term goals of the business. Without changing the long-term goals of the business, well, there would need to be a change in the long-term goals of the business. Because okay, so the answer there is that one. I think that question's the one where you'd have a bit of a go. If you were struggling, you just have a bit of a guess. An organisation has the following stakeholders. So we've got the stakeholders here. Which ones have got an interest in the organisation's sustainability plan? So basically, a stakeholder is who's got an interest, who's going to gain and who's going to lose, who's got a risk and reward associated. So customers would have they're going to have an interest in the sustainability plans. They may choose to be wanting to. To only do their custom with people who are sustainable. Shareholders would have a long-term interest. On the one hand, cost and how much they're going to make. On the other hand, long-term sustainability of their business. Also, as well, they could be ethical shareholders, so they're going to have an interest. Employees. Yeah, the employees are going to have an interest as well. They might want to work for a sustainable organisation. They might not want to be associated with an organisation that is considered bad, on the CVs and whatever. And the local community, certainly, we have an impact on the local community. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, that's task 5 done. I think the thing with task 5 really here was this sort of shifts of demand curves and a normal good. So in terms of definitions here, it can be quite interesting whether people can really get this sort of supply and demand curve section, because it's a large area of economics really. If you are struggling with this, there's a very detailed video on that particular one. If you're struggling, you need to go towards it. Task 6. So task 6 is about communication and visualization. Okay, today's date is 8th of January. We're selling lawnmowers and gardening equipment. Amadale is a sole trader owned by Amber Brooks. Client base is expanding and the equipment is of high quality. So that's okay. So high quality. Purchased at high prices. Okay, so high prices. So in elastic demand. If there's a demand question or not. Employs 8 sales staff. And 1 sales manager, 7 sales representatives, each responsible for a number of customer accounts. Okay, so sales staff, and there's a sales manager and 7 sales people. Okay. Sales. Okay. Each responsible for a number of customer accounts. So there's responsible for customer accounts rather than products, not products. Customers regularly make purchases, so they regularly make purchases. So regular purchases. So they're not just sort of specifically pointing at the year. There's 30 days credit. Okay, 30 days credit. Subject to credit checks in case that's an issue. Amberdale suppliers allow 60 days supply credit. Okay. Got a bit of a working capital gain there if that comes into it. Sales data provide the 6-month period to the 31st of December. Okay, finance manager is responsible for analysing the results, but she's called away. All right, okay. So now you're going to ask. That's the typical scenario. So you're going to have to now do the answer. So you want to know about performance of the business over the 6 months. So performance for 6 months. 6 months. Expected performance going forward. So we're going to follow some trends, extrapolate some trends going forward. Select performance forward, and the information to appraise. Okay, so we have some difference of performance going on here. Right. Okay, prepare a response to Amber in which you discuss the performance of the business of 6 months and the expected performance for the 3 months. And 2 pieces of individual information useful for the sales manager when appraising the sales representative's performance. Right. Okay. So, in this question, we've got written questions. So we got our standard ABC marks of state, explain, extend, Okay, so that's how we're going to hoover up the marks. Let me make this a bit bigger actually, so we're going to see this. Let's do that again. More. Okay, so state, extend, and explain. State, explain, and extend, and then we're going to have the same thing of upsides and downsides. Okay, so upside and downside, and that's how we're gonna go through this and hoover the marks up. All right, so let's start with this particular one. So we've got sales revenue, monthly sales in units by this person, yeah, okay then, and by the product. Right, so state the position. So sales revenue is increased month on month in there from whatever it would be, 675,000 probably to just short of 100, let's say 19,000 in there. So we got this increase there, whatever the percentage will be, and there explain what's driving that. So what's driving that? Well, it's been an increase in units, so we could do the increase in units, we could do the average price per unit, couldn't we? Because we're going to extend it, you know, in terms of explain. And so we're going to explain it in there. So we got increase in the average price per unit in there. We've got we can then explain the increase that what have we got here. So we got the blue line's Ravi. So Ravi's increased, and Ravi's increased month on month in there. Venetia's gone up and down, but she's increased from there. So you can almost go so we can extend that they've gone up. We can give an explanation of what's gone up in terms of the amount that they're selling per month in there, and the same for those ones. Alison's gone up but then just dropped back down, and then these ones are quite low, so you could actually sort of extend this further and say, well, actually these 1, 2, 3, 4, so those 4 people there, however much they make, they don't look like they make up even one, or they might make up one Venetia, but they're not making up one Ravi. So we could say that we've got 2 sales staff members that are 2, 3. Where's the other ones then? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, and Patrick's not even on here. He's not made anything yet, so we'd have to know whether Patrick's even started. Yeah, so Patrick's not made any sales at all there. So we can sort of say, well, we've got 5 of them, salespeople that are doing the same as those ones. Has Patrick only just started? That'd be one for the later thing there though. Was he ill? What have you? Right, so we've got that kind of idea about who's driving our sales. So let's also get other things that we got here, those cost income drivers. Right, so we've got that in terms of who's driving our sales. So we've said that they've gone up there, though. We've said that they've gone up in terms of the number of units that we're selling. We could work out what the unit price is that's changing as well. We've got our sales people that are, you know, these 2 people are driving it forward. Those ones are not, you know, and then the extensions coming on in terms of what's happening here. What's this last one here? And our sales, our products. We've got this basic mower that's actually gone down. So our basic mower's gone down. Our standard mower's doubled over the period of time, and our superior mowers almost doubled. Now, in terms of this thing, I think you could do percentages, which would be quite useful as well, without sucking up too much time. Those are our mowers, and then what was this other thing? This finishing machine, gardening equipment. So it's gardening equipment. Gardening equipment, preparation machine has not changed, it's the same, and the finishing machine has not changed either. They're the same over the period of time, and we've only got 1 product in those ones as well. So I don't know whether that's a superior product or not really, but what we see here is our superior products are going up in price, or up in demand, and our basic ones really dropped, hasn't it, to whether we should even bother doing that one. And here's our things, which fits in with the idea of us being a high quality, high value one that people don't really want, a basic mower. All right, okay, so we've got that as our general. Now let's sort of extend it even further then. Well, we can sort of, what have we got? Discuss the performance over the 6 months, expected performance over the 3 months. So we can extend it in terms of our what's going on with our staff members here. That we've got 2 people here who are doing more sales than all the rest of our sales team put together, and then is that because of, it's not about the product that they're selling, because they all sell the different products, it's about the customers, that how much they're selling to each customer. So is it that Ravi and Venetia have got all the best customers, or they've got all the customers, or what have you in there, and there needs to be a movement around between them? Is it a question that they just do really well and they need to train the other people in terms of how and their selling techniques and what have you. In there, is it that they're motivated by bonuses or what have you, in terms of that kind of thing? We can extend it a little bit further there, and we can extend it a bit further there in terms of saying, well, actually, these products here, the high-end products, are doing really well, and there, and we've got this increased demand. Should we increase the price? So that's our general position. Any downsides? Well, we've given the downside. Look, these people here are just not making any sales and they're costing us money. Okay, and Patrick is doing nothing. Patrick's not even hit the charts. Is it because he's only just started? Right. That's the performance there. Performance of the 3 months going forward. So let's extrapolate it going forward. Well, we've been going up month to month to month. Will that continue? Hopefully that'll continue. And there, we could sort of say, well, but we're getting into a period of January, February, March. Is there a lot of gardening that goes on in those periods? So some kind of, it's like, well, what's actually what we're seeing now is that the demand keeps going up even though it's in this November, December. So that probably doesn't seem to be the case. Okay, so we'd expect it to keep going up. And there, we got no movements in the preparation and finishing machines. So that probably will stay static unless we decide to introduce some kind of new higher spec product in that one. We could sort of work out what the average price is we're going to generate and extrapolate that forward as well if that keeps going. Okay, so that's what we've got going forward, and the expected performance. I don't know, there was nothing really sort of gained out of the creditor terms from that really. Okay, additional 2 pieces of additional information that would be useful for the sales manager when appraising the sales representative's performance. So we've already had a bit of discussion on that one. Patrick's got no sales at all. So has he just started? When did he start? The amount of, let's say, training that's been given to Ravi and to Venetia that's making them really successful. What's happened to Alison that's making her sales drop? And there, what is the breakdown of customers between these different salespeople? That's meaning that these 5 are only worth 1 of these other 2. Yeah, so that will be that one in terms of sales price. Now, okay, that was just a walkthrough, but really I think what we're sort of seeing in terms of getting structure in this one is in terms of good answers. You want to state something, you want to explain what's going to happen, and then you want to extend it. And if you can get some upsides and downsides in there, that's how you'll hoover up the marks. And here, in terms of a position to start, often in these questions is the tricky one in here. And then you can sort of state what something is, explain. So we've got to state it. Well, yeah, it's gone up from there to there, it's increased monthly, and there's constant increase and what have you. Here we've got our units going up from there to there. We can explain that there's a change in average price here. This one we've got breakdowns of different movements going from there to there. This one's going down, that one's going up. What does that mean? Well, high-end quality, what's in demand from our company, and what we should continue. And here we've got the individual people changing from there to there, but then some extension in terms of, well, Patrick's not sold anything, and these people aren't worth. These people are only producing the same as one of these ones up here. And I'm going to extend it to, well, why do these people do really well versus these ones down here? So in terms of our extend, we could also have our questions of why. Hopefully that's helpful for task 6. Task 7. Okay, so identify one appropriate strategy to deal with each of the following risks. Well, in terms of risks, we can transfer the risk, typically transferring it to an insurance. We can accept the risk, we can do nothing about it, we just simply accept the risk because it's our operational risk and there's not really anything we can do to do it. Or alternatively, reducing it and avoiding it actually are too expensive. And we can reduce it and we can avoid it entirely. Costs usually associated with these 2. So, the risk to a chemical manufacturer of their employees suffering an injury due to the handling of hazardous materials, an essential part of their job. Right, so it's the essential part of the job means we can't avoid it. Let's go through and just kill them off there. We can't avoid it because otherwise we just stop doing whatever we do. And it's health and safety risk, really. We can transfer a bit of it in terms of we can have employers' liability insurance, but we can't transfer the sort of risk to directors of corporate manslaughter, so we can't really transfer that one. We can't accept it because that would end up being done under a corporate manslaughter charge when somebody gets killed, so we can't do that there. So we're going to reduce that, which we're going to reduce it. We're going to reduce it through health and safety policies, health and safety committees, good sort of culture of health and safety in there, and learning from things that go on. So that would be reduced definitely for that one. That would have been a far better question if it was written. And then the remote risk to a retailer that their high value inventory may be destroyed by fire. So whilst we could reduce it with sprinkler systems or whatever, and we could accept it as well, now what we can do is we can transfer that risk via insurance. So that one is a good example of where risk can be transferred, because we would have an insurance company who's prepared to take that at a reasonable fee. So in terms of the cost versus income benefit analysis of that one, insurance would be a good one there. Identify which one of the following factors normally considered as a strategic risk. So this is a sort of a high level risk associated with strategic decisions made by directors, really. So one of the businesses suppliers imposes stricter credit terms. So that's a financial risk. Something associated with the financial inflows and outflows for the firm. That one's there. It's a financial risk. Permanent worldwide shortage of raw materials that the business uses, possibly a strategic risk, not the greatest one. The business's third largest customer transferring its purchase to a creditor, so reliance on a particular customer is financial risk as well. And the error in the valuation of inventory is an operational risk, really. So it has to be by the process of elimination. It's not really the greatest, most strategic one, if I'm being truthful, though. An example of a strategic risk would be, let's say, Kodak's failure to update its products in the 1970s, really, and goes from completely dominating the photography industry to being just a big player by the end of it, because it failed to modernize. Something else, let's say a firm that doesn't switch to online sales or whatever, or have an online platform, that's an example of a strategic risk or strategic failure. Right, a large supermarket chain, Zesda, has a range of different store types. So we've got supermarkets, convenience stores, and collection stores. Okay. Zesda encourages in its supermarkets and convenience customers to register for a Zesda loyalty card. They provide details of this card present at the till when they're shopping, and they can exchange for discount vouchers. Okay. Identify one of the following benefits that Zesda has of the loyalty card. So it's collecting data on its customers. That's probably going to be in there somewhere. Oh, it enables the collection of shopping habits by Zesda. Well, it's going to be that one. As there's only one, it's going to be the top one. Provides Zesda with a range of secondary data. So what? Simplifies the tills. It doesn't simplify the tills, and reduces and it increases the reliance on the Zesda system. So even if we were processed by process of elimination, it wouldn't be those ones. It would be this one. But as it happens, it's that one. Okay, identify the big data characteristics that underline the challenges for benefits for Zesda described in each statement below. So we've got lots of data going on with this one, because it's a big company and it's got lots of loyalty, lots of people buying lots of different things. Okay, and so if we've got our big data, we've got four different types of things. So we've got volume, the amount of it; velocity, how quickly it has to be processed; the variety, how different it is; and the veracity, how accurate it needs to be. So Zesda collects data from all three different store types. So there's a lot of difference going on here. So it feels like it requires customers to use their loyalty cards. This in addition to data collection. So there's lots of different stuff there. It could be volume, it could be variety. Let's just wait on that one a second. There are thousands of customers visiting the stores daily. This means Zesda is collecting, processing that every minute of the day. So that's sort of saying every minute of the day. So that's velocity. Comprehensive process system to analyze and store all the data. So there's the volume, which means the top one is going to be the variety then. So I felt it was probably going to be at the start anyway. And then veracity going to be accuracy, probably in the last one. Loyalty card is deemed to be accurate. Oh, well, there we go. There's accuracy in the back element of it there. So a little bit of potential on that one, and we could do it by the process of elimination, how it was going to work. Okay. The data collected by a loyalty card is analysed, and information is provided to assist each store making decisions. The information about the products is most commonly purchased together. We can each so there's a lot of combinations that we're trying to do here. Complete the following decision making about select one. The information will assist in making decisions. So we're collecting lots of different decisions here about how people purchase, what they purchase together, and when they purchase, so that we're going to sort of place, we're probably going to place our stuff in the store. And information will assist making decisions about where to place products in the store. So it's an example of Where to place products in the store is not strategic. It's not a highlight little thing about where we're going to, what's market we're going to be in, discount market or bulk or high end or whatever. It's not about which stores we're going to open or whatever. So it's not strategic. It's not managerial in terms of how many staff members or whatever we're going to put in there. It's an straight up operational decision about what we're doing. In our where we're actually going to place the goods. So quite a low level operational decision, but important. Okay, identify which of the following statement is true about the quality of information. The information derived from the loyalty card scheme is of good quality because it's available in real time. Well, I've got to be honest with you, it's real time, so real time is always going to be sort of slated as being good quality. And as you see the word real time, and we're having good quality. In practice, no, not really, because people have got to read it in real time. But it's just we'll go with the flow on that one. Zesda's financial function interacts with other businesses, for example, human resources and operations function. Identify two pieces of information which Zesda's finance function would directly receive from the human resources function. So it's going to receive things like when people start, what their pay rates are, whatever, any kind of holiday things for accruals. Let's see what we've got. New employee start. Oh, there we go. New employee start date. When to pay them from. Overtime hours worked this week. Not really, because remember the point of HR is to acquire employee resources for the business. That's their thing, either to recruit people, remove people, or get them back to work if they're ill. That's their point really in of existence, and to keep them happy so we retain people. So employee start date is one of those. Overtime work, no, that comes from the managers, the operational managers. Hourly and overtime rates. Yep, we would get what we're going to pay them from the HR department, what we've agreed when we were recruiting them. Travel expenses, no, that's again from the operational managers. And that's it. So that was number 7. And so I said, I'd give my impressions of the task. Well, it's according to the specifications of this unit. It's a 70 hours guided learning hours thing, very wide ranging in there. So I think you'll need all 70 hours. And I also think as well it's one of those ones where you're going to have a lot of trying to get it. In terms of the multiple choice questions, you could see as I was going through there was various different options. I think there's a lot of potential to get these wrong. So I think actually, to be fair, you're going to have to turn the written questions from being a weakness to being a strength. So definitely that sort of state, explain, extend, upside, downside kind of view of writing to hoover up all the marks in there is going to be really important. And the specs also say that that tutors need to bring this to life. So it's going to actually be quite an interesting one, really, because you need to have a wide range of experience to bring this to life. So, for example, I am a finance director, I am the money laundering reporting officer, and I'm the Gdpr data officer, and I'm also the risk management, control the risk management process in my organisation. So yeah, I can bring it to life, and also an economics graduate. So. Yeah, I probably can. I think there are quite a few and far between. See how it goes. So yeah, I think this one is going to be a throw time at it. Really try and get it in a very crunched in it. Get it done quickly as well. Don't let this one drag on. Right there, when you're going to have to give it the full 70 hours at least, really, to get it. A bit concerned really about the supply and demand curve sort of bit in the sort of A-level economics element of this unit, because I think that's one which is unlike, let's say, double entry bookkeeping, where you sort of understand debits and credits pretty quickly and then everything else builds on it. It takes a while to understand demand and supply curves really and exactly how they work. So that was that exam walkthrough. Hope you enjoyed it. If you do, leave a like. If you have any sort of issues, or if you just your views on what you think of this unit, leave a comment. It'd be great. Thanks a lot. See you later.